Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome, everybody. I am thrilled to introduce Riana to you today, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself, and she's got so many gems. When you read her bio and you look at her website, you'll see all of the amazing things that she has. And what I'm particularly struck by is really getting to the root cause of some of these things. So before I say anything more, Riana, take it away. Tell us about
Thank you so much, Karen, for introducing me and having me on your show today. I hope that we can deliver lots of positive content for our listeners. I have been a psychotherapist in private practice for 23 years. August will be 24.
Wow.
And I went global in 2017 as a life coach specializing in healing both childhood and love trauma. And since that, I have been featured in Forbes magazine. Wealth Insider named me one of the top 10 coaches to follow in 2022. Just this month, I came out in Disrupt magazine with a feature article. And in March, Influencer Daily highlighted me as an influencer, teaching mindset for success and healing childhood trauma around the world and love trauma. Love trauma means coming out of a domestic violence situation, anything that makes you physically, emotionally, mentally sick from a partner. So that's toxic trauma and relationship work. And I'm a mother of two very successful daughters, grandma of 6. I'm an author of 13 books, 2 #1 bestsellers on Amazon, which is Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve, and Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success. I've also been a coach on a reality series called Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40. And I help women and men ages 16 to 76 was my oldest client, singles, couples, straight, LGBTQ, to go on to create the life they desire and have the love they deserve by healing both childhood and love trauma. And I work totally through the internet, which I love, so I can help people around the globe.
That's fantastic. I'm curious, when you think about when you were a kid, did you aspire to do this work? What got you into it?
Well, I was a very shy child. I was pretty much a tomboy. I grew up sister, brother, me, brother. So I was close with male energy and boys and a tomboy and didn't want to play with the girls in the neighborhood. I like playing with the guys. And I'm still pretty much that today. I love male energy and I have a ton of male friends. Very close still with my brothers. And but I was very shy. I grew up very skinny and tall with no shape and had in glasses since the age of 6. So I was bullied quite a lot. And I remember in 8th grade auditioning by writing a composition to win a $500 scholarship at a modeling school, which was quite a lot of money for a family of 5. I never could have gone by myself. My family would not have paid for that. And I won the competition and I was shocked. And that's when I knew I really could connect my heart to my words and put my words on paper to evoke emotion. So I always enjoyed writing. And as a young kid, I had 200 poems published. And as a high school senior, I won Who's Who of American high school English students. And I go home and my mom's there, well, why would they give that to you? So that gives you a little bit of the background story of my childhood trauma. Had a very demanding, critical mom who, grew up during the Great Depression. And many of us baby boomers had that tough parent that wanted to make sure the kids survived, and part of healing childhood trauma is understanding that it does go through 3 generations. And why was my mom so tough that way? And we didn't hear the words, I loved you, and we never got compliments. But, going back to the modeling school, that was what gave me my confidence. And I had to learn to speak up to be a promotional model where I was promoting different people's products and just going up to strangers and saying hello and getting them to listen to me, in 5 words or less so I could get their attention and sell the product. So I
Wow.
actually entered into sales at a very young age. But one of the biggest critical moments is when I lost my childhood friend, Michael, to a drunk driver. And
Oh,
we were both 16 years old. And I'd asked my mom to go to counseling to help heal the loss. And she goes, no one in this family will ever go to a counselor. And I never talked back to her because she could be quite angry. And I said, well, then I will grow up and become one. And that was the day I think I really found my voice to state my intentions and my purpose and have the drive and the focus to be able to move forward. So my healing was coming from the masters, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, the Dalai Lama, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, and the Course of Miracles, spiritual philosophy that I was starting to read at 16, 17, 18 years old. Then in my
amazing.
20s, I opened up a model and talent agency after a love trauma, a marriage that had me divorced when my girls were very young, 4 and 5. And that was after he stole $200,000 from my mother. And with a bankruptcy, you can't open up a business unless you just have your first month's rent. And I had a lot of prayers, but by then I had the mindset for success. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can you do the things that are difficult in your life and get beyond love or childhood trauma to excel and succeed?
Yeah. Well, I love it. Let's go for it. I'm ready.
Okay. So, I mean, that's really how I got my start. I also had another loss of my Penn State girlfriend who was murdered by her boyfriend. So that is spiritually when I took Michael and Corinne's soul into my soul and lived my life with double purpose and said, I will give back. And how much time do I have? So I always knew being a victim would not help me in any way. I had to support my children. I wanted them to get out of the small town of Erie, Pennsylvania. I did not want them running a Greek diner when they grew up. So I started traveling with them and having them see the world and learn about other cultures. And they were listening to cassette tapes of my
I love it.
spiritual philosophies, as we're in the car. So they learn mindset very early on. And when I work with my clients to heal trauma, I always first find out, do you have children and how are they doing if in this toxic environment of this marriage that is toxic where you're suffering, kids will suffer. And I always have them turn around to teach what they're learning on mindset work. So, I mean, one lesson I can teach to get today, I call it the theory of yin and yang, which is from a Buddhist philosophy, but this is the way we interpret it, my clients and I. So if you put like a T on a piece of paper and on the left side, you're going to list some things. And on the right side, you would list others. So most people, research shows 8 out of 10 people have negative fear-based thinking. This is all based from childhood trauma, norms and behavioral patterns and the messages that we hear. So when people are afraid to have their voice, that comes from my top 10 trauma list that I developed in 2012 called the Childhood Trauma Checklist. And trauma number 2 is verbal messaging. So I gave you an example. What did I hear? I heard critical messages. I never got compliments. I heard put downs. Why would I get it when I was really a great writer, and on the newspaper and on the yearbook committee and writing in poetry books at that time. But so what are the messages you're hearing? Also, trauma 2 is around what patterns did you grow up with? So if you saw your parents had an issue, were they yelling and screaming at each other? Did one walk out of the room? Did dad not talk to mom for 2 or 3 days? Well, those tend to be your vocal patterns that you would grow up with because these are your norms. This is what we were taught. This is how you handle an issue. You yell and scream at each other, which is, of course, not emotionally healthy. All right. And then tied with trauma 7, which we call personal trauma. So did you go through anything where you felt different? If you were a chubby child, were you teased for that? If you were skinny and gawky like I was, were you called a nerd? Even if you were smart, you might have been called a learning nerd, which I laugh and I say today I'm a learning nerd because I'm smart, but I love to learn. And then, how did you feel? Did you measure up to the other girls, or were you bullied like me? I was tall and skinny and had no shape. Okay. So those messages will make you tend to be shy and not speak up and not use your voice because you're afraid you're going to be judged. Right. So the childhood traumas, when a client comes to me, I do what's called a discovery session with 6 different assessments, and I get to the bottom of what their traumas were, their severity levels, and then how are they showing up today in life or love. So let's go back to one of the mindset exercises I use, and I've been teaching mindset for over 40 years.
Wow.
I opened up a model and talent agency at age 26. I have an example like my model, Jennifer, who came to me. She was a plus size girl. She's a size 23. She goes, I know there's big BW out there, big, beautiful woman models. I want to be one of those. I said, Jen, you can be whoever you want to be. I said, but are you willing to do the work? I just need you to get down to a size 16. She goes, I'll do it, Riana. She goes, but my family's so mean. They look at me and say, look in the mirror, look how fat you are. This is a joke. You're throwing away your money. And she was like 22 years old and quite beautiful. So she ended up being with Ford special sizes and making a ton of money. But from her to go from the critical messages of I'm not good enough to I can do this and I believe in myself, this is what I called years back when I was 26 years old, the mindset for success. So even healing childhood trauma messages and all the other traumas you might have grown up with to go on to be that successful entrepreneurial woman that needs to speak up for herself and prove her doubters wrong. Like when I was told, Erie, PA, no, a model and talent agency will never go. My ex-husband said, see how far you'll get in this town without my last name. And I'm there, watch me. And that was all I needed. Had my first month's rent. Within 6 months, I won the International Award for Educational Excellence. Within the year, I had a list of 25 with a waiting list to get into my agency and my school. And I won Model and Talent School of the Year. I was on the news all the time, in the newspaper with all the success stories of my people, these little small town people hitting it big in all the big cities, including my own daughter, Alexi, who ended up singing on 3 multi-platinum CDs. And her dad says, you think you can be a singer? That's an effing joke. So I taught my girls mindset as I was learning it. And it is the essential skill to finding your voice. So let's go into this one exercise.
Great.
And 8 out of 10 people have 8 out of 10 negative thoughts. So very much when people have that fear-based negative mindset, they have reactive response. So living in here's the little yin yang symbol. People don't know it, right? If you're living in the dark side, that's on the left side of your paper. You are reactive. When you're living in the light, you are proactive and you take action whenever a problem comes towards you. You don't get into victim mode and you don't lash out, with anger. On the dark side, it's unconscious and you act out. On the right side, conscious choices are made. So my job is to teach people to live in complete conscious awareness. On the left side is uneducated about mindset. You just don't know what you don't know. On the right side, that is educated with numerous mindset and trauma healing tools that my clients learn that they know to go into if they're ever emotionally triggered. On the left side is those negative fear-based thoughts. On the right side are love-based thoughts like joy, love, happiness, purpose, passion, romance. Everything that makes you feel good is living in the light. Everything that makes you feel bad is in the dark side, like anger, jealousy, revenge, addiction, murder, rape. Anything that's dark, thinking or doing is in the dark side. Anxiety, depression, that's all in the dark side. Okay, so on the left side, the dark side is I can't do it mentality. You give up easily. On the right side, we always ask, what can I do to fix this problem? For example, when COVID came to the US and people were told you have to stay in your house for 30 days, everyone's like, victim, poor me, I'm going to lose my job, I have no money, and all this catastrophizing. Right away, I'm like, oh my God, I have 30 days to do another project. What can I do that I needed more time? And it's almost like, I have a forced vacation. This is awesome, because I could totally focus on writing another book, which I actually put out 2 new ebooks during that 30-day time period.
Oh, I love it.
So we're always towards that what can we do, even though everyone else might be in victim mode. So we
And just
seek
taking
answers.
a moment, Rihanna. So earlier you said making a tea. Is this part of that?
Yes,
So you
this is
make a
the
tea on a
left
piece of
side.
paper, and
Yeah,
then you have on the left side is the light side.
the dark side.
Oh, the left side is the dark. Does it matter, left or right?
In our mind, it does, because we're
Okay.
always thinking to the light and the right side. Yes. So
Okay, so the right side is the light. The
yeah,
right
living in the
light.
light, and then on the
Okay.
left is living on the dark side.
Okay, and so you write all of the thoughts that you have on both of those sides. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I'm telling you the differences between the two. Like on the left side is reactive, on the right side is proactive.
Okay, got it. So you're going to further define those for us, and then you're going to tell us what we do. I'm just trying to get clear on what the exercise is.
Yeah, I
Okay,
am
awesome.
describing the difference is
describing
that
it now.
8 out of
Okay.
10 people are living in the dark side of the
Yes.
unconscious mindset.
Yes.
When you live in
Great.
the light, this is the positive mindset for success
Beautiful.
that
Okay,
helps
great.
you find your voice and live an empowered life that you love.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
So, and then on the left side is where anxiety and depression live. People who can't find their voice are always very anxious.
Mhm.
Anxiety comes directly from childhood trauma.
Mhm.
So, when you're anxious or you have these bouts of depression, you talk yourself out of something you really want or need, or an investment for yourself that will help you grow because you're too afraid to go or say it or do it, right?
Yeah.
So on the right side, we have hope. We definitely have spiritual faith and trust in ourselves that we can do it. We can get up and speak this message. We can do this. We can take on that new career that we desire,
Yeah.
right? Then on the left side, we say stuck in life, and we say no to a lot of opportunities. On the right side, we're saying yes all the time, and it leads to incredible opportunities. An example of that is in January, decided I'm going on a vacation. I haven't had a vacation since COVID, so I went on a singles trip. And I reached out to the cruise director and said, hey, by the way, I'm a singles coach. If you need an extra speaker, I'd be glad to stand up and speak. She goes, that would be great. Now, if I didn't speak up and ask, I would not have had this opportunity.
Yes.
Would you like to speak for 15, 20 minutes? That's all I've got. Yes. Because it's a yes to all my opportunities. So I didn't even prepare anything. It was last minute. I'm like, oh, I'll figure out. It's only 15 minutes. What can I say? So, I stood up and said a few things, and she got an excellent response back. She goes, oh my God, they loved you. Would you like to speak on more singles trips? Yes.
I love it.
So, by having the guts and the mindset to say yes to opportunities, yes, there will be more speaking opportunities. And the more you practice it, the more you do it, the more you believe in yourself. But all of this is part of what I call the mindset for success. And finding your voice is part of this practice. And you said, well, how do people do that? That is my 4 to 6 month program in healing childhood trauma, anxiety, depression, and the norms that lead you into love trauma or living a fear-based life where people don't have the courage to find their voice.
So is that a good place to start? Well, first of all, I totally 100% agree with you. It's just so great you're talking about this. The whole chapter of my book is called Seize Opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah, being able to ask for what you want and speak up, but pay attention to what's happening around you.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Would an exercise then, just because you started with the T, so I'm inherently curious, is a good exercise to start with writing what's on your dark side and what's on your light side?
Yeah, I mean, using my chart, putting what's on the left side and the right side, and really asking yourself, well, where am I? If I'm living in the dark side, right? Because I always, my quote is, you can't change what you don't acknowledge or understand.
Yeah.
So if you are, afraid to speak up, then you have to say, wow, okay, I am living on the dark side. I have a lot of these fear-based negative messages in my head, which we call negative or positive self-talk. And I know they came from my childhood trauma because my mom made me feel not good enough and I couldn't excel. I never got a compliment. I was bullied because I wasn't pretty, all that stuff. You can stay stuck as the victim, or change your mindset and become the empowered person you're meant to be.
Love it.
And
Love
this
it.
also works in dating and relationship, because that is the other 50% of what I do. I help people have emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationships.
Mhm.
So a woman coming out of a emotionally abusive relationship may be scared to death to date and doesn't know how to start. And one of our exercises is just say hello. Just go up to say hello to someone with this spiritual energy and feeling amazing about yourself, which is all the exercise. They get up to that point. Then they're
Mhm.
heading out to date. And, I tell them they have to be an empowered dater, which we call conscious dating. So they know the questions to ask. They know if someone has unhealed childhood trauma and how much of it. So
Ooh, can you give us a couple of those?
is there an emotionally healthy person in front of them or not healthy person? And then that's when they're going to say yes or no to another date or two or not, and know
Yes. Can you
exactly
give us a
why.
couple of those?
What the questions to ask?
Yeah, give us a couple. Give us some
Okay,
tips.
so there's 24 questions I explain in my love book in section 4, but this is not like an interview. This is like having a conversation. So if
Yeah,
you're in the baby
absolutely.
boomer age, and I can give this example. One of my clients, my woman, was out on a date. She said he was very attractive. He pulled out the chair, he got her a drink, asked her if she would like an appetizer. So far, so good. And then she asked one of the first questions. So you've been living in Florida. Like, is your mom and dad down this way, or have they passed on? That sounds like a regular date question, right? Well, it's not. It's one of our 24. And it's you just say it in a conversational way. So he goes, well, my dad has passed on and my mom's in a retirement home. She goes, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. How's she doing? He goes, oh, it's such a drain on me and my finances. Like, she was a rough lady my whole life. She's been an alcoholic. I can't believe she's hanging on this long. It's like, oh, that's a shame. Did you ever get to heal that with your mom? Or goes, no, she was miserable her whole life. She was horrible to me. So then she knew, in my book, we have something called a mother hater. Just the way she described his mom is he did not like his mother. And it was such a critical about her and a hardship for him to even take care of her. So the father said, wow, that's a shame. Is your dad alcoholic too? Now, number one trauma is having addiction in the family. So now she's researching this a little further. Well, yes, my dad was an alcoholic too, and he wasn't the easiest, but at least when I was 13, he quit and tried to make it up to me. We'd go fishing and camping together, and at least, that was good for me as I was growing up. She's like, well, that's good. So now she already had 2 pieces of information in the first 7 minutes of a conversation. So that's what we call empowered dating. You know exactly what you're looking for. And she decided, even though the first date went fairly nice, he was very critical about the mother, and his emotions rose, which showed her in the body language and the tone of voice that he had not healed this. So she decided she was not going to move on. He calls the next day, goes, well, that date was great. I'd like to see you again. She goes, well, it was really nice meeting you, but after giving it much thought, I don't think we're quite a match. And he starts yelling at her. And instead of like going into panic mode, like the dark side, she knew mother hater. Yep. You never love your woman. Everything is critical. Can't do anything good enough. They're always hard on their female partners. So she goes, I'm sorry. I don't allow someone yelling at me. So I'm going to hang up now. I wish you the best of luck. Hung up, blocked his number.
Wow.
So this is what we call empowered dating.
Yes.
And when I hear coaches say, be vulnerable, I'm like, no, be empowered. Know what you're doing. You can still be kind and loving. She wasn't mean when she hung up the call. Whether he heard that or not is up to him, not up to her. She said it, closed off the call, move forward, next. And to be empowered means you can talk about your feelings in a kind and loving way. That is empowered communication.
Absolutely.
Not being vulnerable. If you look up the definition of vulnerable, it's like being prone to weakness or attack. So why be vulnerable on a date? Be empowered.
Yeah.
And then we have all kinds of dating do's and don'ts rules that our women learn and men hear so that they have success in dating. Because I say there is an art and psychology to dating successfully.
Yeah,
and you need to know what that is.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. Really talk about empowering. How about, I'm curious about you. Was there a time, because you obviously are so successful and you speak up and you see it all the time. Has there ever been a time, and if so, would you be willing to share it with us, where you didn't speak up, but you wished that you had?
Probably more when I was a younger woman, and as
Oh,
my mother was going through being frauded,
mm,
from my husband. That was very difficult, but I was pregnant at the time.
oh,
So, after my two children were born, I did speak up. I did endure another love trauma where I stood up as my own attorney in a courtroom. I was able to get a private courtroom because it was a very public case with what he did. And I was able to stand up for myself, served as my own attorney, got an annulment. I didn't know how rare it was. I had the full faith and belief I was going to get it. And the judge says, Ms. Milne, in 22 years of being a family court judge, I've only granted one annulment. Slams the gavel and he goes, and yours is the second. Did you ever think of being an attorney? And I'm like, no, thank you, Your Honor. I'm very happy being a coach and a counselor. That's all I want to do. I just want my peaceful life back and to get back
wow.
on track. And yeah, so that was another time. I have more examples of when I stood up for myself than actually not remembering when I didn't, except when I
Yeah.
was very young and shy and couldn't fight back the bullies. And so once I learned
Yeah.
mindset, I have spoken up. That there's always a little bit of nerves when you're getting on like a big stage to speak, or you're
Sure.
putting yourself in a new experience, which could be challenging. But I
Mhm.
always say in my mind, I'm nervous because I care. I want
Oh,
my
that's great.
message to mean something. I want to teach something valuable. So I really reinterpret the nervousness to be more positive than negative.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that the beautiful thing, or physiologically, that there is no difference between nervousness and excitement. So
Yeah,
lifting that up is so powerful. Well,
exactly.
I have one more question for you
Sure.
related to what advice would you give? Because I'm thinking about the women listening to this that are in their 40s and 50s and still holding back at certain times, not honoring their needs, not setting the boundaries. What is one piece of advice that you could offer for those women?
Understand that this comes from a childhood trauma piece. You can get that free test on my website, rianamilne.com, under love tests. And there's tests there for singles and couples. So take them all, and you can get the first 60 pages of my Live and Love books on there as well. So
Wow.
it is breaking the patterns from childhood trauma and learning to be. Most people, when they grow up in a volatile household, they get quiet. They shut down because if they speak up, they would have been hit or punished worse. So they learn to not speak up is safe. And then if they move on and they're in a toxic love relationship, same thing happens. If I speak up and speak my point of view, I might get hit, I might get screamed at, I might not get talked to for a week. So it's usually these toxic things that happen in their history. And they have to heal that initial trauma to become their strongest and their best empowered selves. And mindset is a huge part of that. There's many, many mindset tools that I teach in my tool bag as I'm a CCTP advanced, which is certified clinical trauma professional, as well as a licensed mental health counselor. So I deal with the trauma piece first and then teach you what the skills you need for very empowered relationships and dating, for sustainable relationships, and also to grow to the next level in your business, which is also mindset. So my dad taught me this lesson when I was young. I love this lesson. He goes, "Hun, if you have the 5 Ds for success, you can do anything in life." It has been expanded to the 8 Ds as I have grown my business, and taught my daughters as well to be successful. So the 8 Ds are: first, decide what you want. Make it very crystal clear in your mind. Start meditating on it, start praying on it. This is what I decide I really want to do. Second is desire. That desire has to be stronger than wanting to party or go out with friends more. It's like writing a book. I decided I'm going to write for 6 months and get the book done. It was 6 months from idea to proof on my door for my 400-page book because I was moving to Florida from New Jersey and it had to be done. I decided it was going to be done in 6 months. The desire was stronger on the weekend to write than go out with my friends. I was determined to get it done. So determination is a D. Dedication to the process. I'm dedicated to finishing this chapter and to writing to midnight or writing till exhaustion to get the book done. Devotion is the spiritual faith that I will do it and I can do it and God will help me to do it. So that devotion is really important to me. And he said, dare to dream and dream big, babe. So taking that dare to dream big and believing in your dream when nobody else does. That's when I found my biggest success came, when everybody doubted me. It's like, watch me. And that's what I call me the watch me mindset for success. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then the other D's I added was drive, because when it gets hard and grueling and you're exhausted, the drive pushes you to keep going. And, there's going to be bumps in the road. You could give up, or the drive keeps you moving forward. And the discipline to do what you set out to do that day, that week, that month to finish your goals. We have a lot of goal setting that we do in our program. My motto is create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. And the goal setting system helps you create it and get it to fruition. And then when you are settled in the life that you love, then you move on to have the love that you deserve. Because now you're going out, there's the whole package. You feel amazing about yourself, your life, your business. And you're the whole package because you have no cheap drama in your life. That's all been settled. And now you won't settle for anything less, right? So you are looking for that empowered, conscious living equal, so that together you both have an amazing life moving forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of those with us.
You're welcome.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you want me to ask or that you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, just again, to help people, my website, my podcast, I forgot to mention, is called Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne. I have 120 shows out there. My YouTube channel is like 300 free tapes and audios. If anyone wants to analyze their past childhood traumas, definitely reach out to me for a discovery session on my website, Riana Milne. And on that homepage, there is a free ebook called How to Have the Love You Deserve. So I have a ton of free resources.
Awesome.
Get to know me. If I can help you, it's my pleasure and my honor to do so. And, do find your empowered voice, because life is really too short to live in the back seat. You know what I mean? Like, go for your dreams. It's just amazing. One little story I'll finish up with, Karen.
Yeah.
When my daughter Alexi was 5 years old, she's sitting here watching TV and she sees Save the Children commercial in Africa. She goes, Mom, I'm going to go save those kids one day. And I said, babe, I totally believe you will. And I looked her right in the eyes. I said, that's a beautiful dream. Oh my God, what a proud thing that you would do. You'd feel so good about yourself. So she wanted to be a singer. I ended up with the world aligned spiritually, that I met with the top singer of the time in South Beach at a nightclub. He ended up auditioning my daughter, sings on 3 multi-platinum CDs, goes around the world on tour, ends up in Africa, looks down from the tour bus. The connection was made in her mind. I always had the dream to help these little children. At 20, she starts a charity called EPIC, Everyday People Initiating Change. She's featured on MTV, and she blows up. She also ends up, meeting a top executive, Steve Allen. It's a Paul Allen from Microsoft, who had his big yacht out on Tanzania. So she gets catapulted because she's believing in her dreams. And since then, she has 21 working water wells in Africa that she did at the age of 20. And today her name's Alexi Panos. She's one of the top global life coaches in the world. So she went from her dream to another dream of singing to being a television host on several TV shows on HGTV and E! Entertainment News. Then she goes into coaching. So everything she decided to do, she made happen.
Wow.
It's teaching mindset to little children.
Amazing.
And that's why I said, when my clients come in, it's like, how old are your kids and how are they doing? because what you learn, I want you to teach the kids. And I taught this to my students in my schools as well, from kindergarten all the way through college. Kids coming from
Wow.
very traumatic homes. So, like, learn it for yourself, then teach your children, and we can change the world with more people hearing more loving, encouraging messages and people going for their dreams.
I love it. Well, thank you for being here. And everybody go to her website because like she said, there's lots of free resources there. So have a wonderful day, everybody. And Riana,
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.